Mm. Check, 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 check. Microphone. Hello. Oh. That is unfortunate. Gonna see me in 1080p HD quality. All right, checking my microphone on the stream. How do I sound, everybody? Everybody. Are you listening to me double though, Jenna? Like, do you have me in Teams and the stream? I think my goal for this weekend is to figure out how to get a third monitor onto this table. I thought about that, Michael, but I always run into issues with like top because I keep thinking like, some good elevator music would be good. We just hit noon by my clock, but we will give it a few minutes because honestly, we're waiting for our guest of honor. So Invite, right? Yes. I'm going to mute myself on the stream real quick. We're trying to get John in here. Okay. Back to here. Testing sound. Testing sound. Okay. Now I've got the stream going. I've got my audio feeding to the stream. And away we go. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the. I've got to mute myself over here. Apologies. To the November WiscWeb Lunch and Learn. We don't have a huge amount of topics to talk about this month in particular, but we did want to. We've been sort of waiting on this one for a while. Um, uh, very technical support. I'm not sure, Linda. My mic is right here. How's everybody else hearing me? I can turn myself up, but I know. But Linda's saying in the stream that she can't hear me that well. All right, it's quiet. Interesting. I don't think I've messed with anything since last month, so yeah, it might be a volume thing. I'll turn up my volume on the in the OBS all the way, and hopefully I don't blow anybody's speakers out that turned me up. So, okay. We don't have a huge amount of topics this month, but we do have one that we have been um, uh, waiting on for a couple of months now, and it goes back to a topic that we have been waiting to chat about because we wanted. John will deflect this, but we wanted a voice of authority to kind of come in and talk a little bit about the collection of sensitive and restricted data. For many of you, you know that it's something that we sort of have been trying to push back on a little bit for folks to make sure that you're not collecting any information that you shouldn't be. What type of information shouldn't you be collecting? What are some other ways to collect that data, or how can you safely collect that data or that information when you do need it? Um, I'll bring him in here in a second, but we'll have John Nagler from the Office of Cybersecurity to kind of chat with you a little bit more from his perspective and the Office of Cybersecurity's perspective, and to definitely give some more information on that. So just to give you guys a little bit more information from a WiscWeb standpoint, I'm going to change some things around. So now you should be able, or you will be able to see some other things there. Here we go. So one of the things that we want to make you aware of is, let's see, I didn't have this up, but I want you to make you aware of our policy. So I went to RKB and just typed in restricted, sensitive, restricted data, any of that stuff would come up. Now, this is an internal document, and I'm only going to keep it up here for just a few minutes, but this is an internal document, and the reason why is because it does relate to some of our campus specific information, so we don't want to make that information available for the public to just kind of happen upon. But we do want to make you aware of the fact that it is out there, and it does kind of walk through what WiscWeb's policy is, and then leads you to the campus's policy as well, and kind of talks through some information regarding what type of data should you be collecting, shouldn't be collecting, things of that nature. To reiterate why this is an issue for WiscWeb and why it's an issue for you to collect that information, it is because of the fact that the WiscWeb, the way that this is collected isn't in a place that is secure on the WiscWeb service. So this data is collected through Gravity Forms, if you're using Gravity Forms to do this. Gravity Forms is a plugin that does several things. First and foremost, it obviously creates the form for a person to fill out. But subsequently, that form collects that information into entries within the Gravity Forms area itself. And so anybody who's an admin of your site, and subsequently us on the WiscWeb team, because we're super admins, we have access to that data now. So even though you're collecting it for your site and your purposes, it's not secure because it still is accessible by other people who you may not attend. And um, something that I try to remind people of every semester, I shouldn't say every semester, but every start of the school year. So around August or September when we have that lunch and learn, I always try to remind people, look through your user list, make sure that people who need to have access to your site have access to your site. Remove anybody or change their roles within WordPress. But that goes to a broader topic, which is, if a person remains in your user list, they have access to log in so long as they still have NetID access. So that's a broader topic, broader conversation topic, but that's one way to do that. So the other aspect of this is, not only does Gravity Forms store this information internally in the plugin, it also generates those notifications, those email notifications that get sent out to people. And so those emails can be sent to anyone, and then once you receive that email, nothing's stopping you from forwarding that information on to somebody else. And believe me, I know this is a problem because when I first started at Madison, I worked on the HRS project, and I had people emailing me social security numbers, and because I worked on the benefits, the benefits module of HRS, and so I had people emailing me their social security numbers to fix things within the HRS system. So it happens unintentionally, but it happens. So we want to make sure that you're aware of the fact that it isn't a secure location for you to keep this information at. I don't know if I can trigger it, but I'll bring it up here just so people can see it. Let's see, there it is. So one of the things that we've done, at least to try and make you aware of this, is we have created a modal window for when you first log into Gravity Forms. So if you're a brand new user and you're triggering Gravity Forms for the first time, this little window will pop up, and it basically lets you know what our policy is. And you have to click that checkbox there and agree and submit. So that way we're making you aware of it, and to a certain extent, even if you haven't read it, you are signing off on it. This window will pop up every 90 days. We have set it to 90 days. It's just going to be a reminder that this is our policy, and we don't want you to to use gravity forms for this purpose. So, that's kind of what we have done on the WiscWeb side of things to try and alleviate that conversation. So I'll bring in John now to kind of chat through who he is, what he does, and then just give his perspective on this as well. So John, go ahead and take the floor.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jenna. My name is John Nagler. I've worked with the Office of Cybersecurity here on campus. I've been with the Office of Cybersecurity for just over 5 years now. I've been on campus a lot longer than that. I came here as a freshman in the 90s and liked it so much I've never really left. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I was a system admin prior to joining the Office of Cybersecurity, so I have a little bit different, probably, background than most cybersecurity people. A lot of people come in from the military or that kind of background. I came in from a more technical standpoint and liked all the neat tools that they get to, or that we get to use and play with. So yeah, but that's a little bit about me. Oh, and I work for the RMC team, which is the Risk Management and Compliance Office. So thank you, Matt, for throwing up our website. There's 3 different groups in the Office of Cybersecurity. There is the TCD team, which is Testing and Cyber Defense. They are all tools all the time. There is the Incident Response team, which is yep, here we go. Thank you, Matt. They show up when something bad happens and help get it cleaned up and try to stop it in the future. And then our team is the RMC team, which we try to make things secure before something bad happens. And then there's the ERP team as well. So Matt and I both worked on the ERPs in the past. I worked on SIS, he worked on HRS. Sure, we can probably find someone around here that's worked on SFS, so we can complete the trifecta. So,
yes, the holy triangle.
Yes, absolutely. So I really appreciate you guys, giving me this time and opportunity to talk to you. And I really appreciate that you guys care about this kind of stuff. One of the things to know about this is there are a few examples that are obvious that everybody knows, like PHI. So that's personal health information is restricted and needs to be protected. But anything other than that, social security numbers, like Matt said, that's another one. But anything other than those obvious examples, DNA data is another one. Like if you, for whatever reason, had your DNA string on your computer, that would be, heavily protected data, and that would be, restricted. But anything else in between, less than that, all the way down to public, is kind of, it's highly variable. So basically, the rule, a good general rule is, if somebody's going to get fined over it, it's probably sensitive or restricted. And in general, you should try to protect it at a higher level than you think, because no one ever is going to get fined or fired or in trouble for protecting something more than they think they should. But all those things could happen if you, let's say, posted a paper full of social security numbers on the wall of a classroom. Very likely you're going to get in big trouble for that, and probably maybe even fined. So yeah. So anyway, great general rule there. Always protect it more than you think you should. Other than public data, obviously, public data is anything. If you wanted it to go out on YouTube, that's public data. If your intended audience is everyone and you don't care what happens to it, then it's public. But most everything is not public other than this. Like what we're doing right now, obviously we're intending to broadcast that out. A lot of people say, well, who cares what if my email got out there? I imagine you would actually care if somebody, if anybody could just read your email. Like that would be internal. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but I'm guessing you wouldn't just freely give anyone access to your email to see what you're up to. So yeah, so those are some common examples. In general, the 4 classifications of data: public, internal, sensitive, and restricted. Public, again, is anything that anyone can see. and that you intend people to see. Internal is anything that would be like your email is probably internal. Any work product that is proprietary, but it wouldn't be the end of the world if it got out. So possibly, I don't know, at the university, it'd probably be something like project management reports or things like that. They're not intended for the public, but if it got out, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Sensitive would be stuff with usually financial information on it, like budgets and things like that. Although at the university, a lot of our budgets are totally public, so it's kind of funny. Sensitive oftentimes is FERPA data, but it depends on who you ask. A lot of people will tell you that FERPA data is restricted, and in case dropping too many buzzwords here, FERPA is any student data, so grades, classwork, any product that a student creates, their likeness, if their voice, if they're off camera, it's okay, but if it's their voice and their image, that's not okay. If there is an expectation of privacy, so like a classroom, with the students wouldn't expect to be filmed, and then that stuff is protected by FERPA. If it was on the library mall and there's a class out there for some reason, I mean, that's a public space, so there's no expectation of privacy anymore. And then again, restricted data would be social security numbers, PHI, so that's your personal health information, things like that. And since we're talking about it, a common misconception of HIPAA is that it covers everything. It only covers your health provider. Your health provider cannot give out your health information. That's it. So if Matt, for example, asked me about my vaccination status, that is not HIPAA protected. I can tell him or I cannot tell him. That's my private business. But HIPAA has nothing to do with that. HIPAA only finds or involves people and businesses. It doesn't matter people to people or anything else. Like, I mean, Matt could ask me how tall I am or anything else. Like, it's my choice to tell him or not. All of that data, though, if my doctor has all that data, they can't just tell anyone. That's what HIPAA does. It protects you from having your medical providers give your data out to whomever.
So that's an interesting. So that's an interesting one that I want to clarify, because I don't know that we have anybody who's ever asked that information before. Yeah, there's the UW policy, but so in a form, could I, as Matt, ask somebody who's filling out that form what their vaccination status is?
So as Matt as the WiscWeb admin, right? Not Matt as okay. So
Right.
in
Yeah.
that exact instance,
Yeah. Like if like we'll get around to the one that is the big one that I want to talk about from the security standpoint, which is just the student ID aspect of it, because we talked about this yesterday when we met about the fact that we do have groups that ask about student IDs and things like that. How does it work with HIPAA if I'm asking you that question, I'm not asking your medical provider that question?
it is so. Again, I would ask why that matters on a form you're filling out, but and to be clear, cybersecurity is way more gray than it is black and white. There are very few things that are black and white. HIPAA, as it's written, is pretty black and white, but the nuance and the gray area comes in on this kind of stuff. So Matt, working for Do It, you are not a healthcare provider, and Do It is not a healthcare provider, and the UW-Madison is not a healthcare provider. So any of those institutions can ask for those things, but and that is not protected data. The caveat I would say, though, is big picture. Like, ultimately, what the cybersecurity Office of Cybersecurity does is like our big. I mean, it's our like unstated mandate is to try to keep our employees and institution out of the paper, and to stop us from getting fined, and to stop us from losing research information and things like that. Like, that's ultimately what our goals are. If for whatever reason you were collecting health data and it got leaked out, Channel 3000 is not going to have the nuance to tell their readers that this was not HIPAA protected data because the UW-Madison is not a healthcare institution. It's the headline is going to say healthcare information leaked by UW-Madison, and then it doesn't matter. So I would strongly recommend you don't collect that data if you can help it at all. And if you do need to collect it, try to either like randomize it or have it just be a checkbox or something like that. So Nick, I see your questions there. Require vaccination. Well, if it's just a checkbox, or I guess I'd have to find out more about how you are validating that whoever the person is vaccinated. Because it is health data, but because the university is not a health provider, HIPAA does not cover any of that. So, and Matt, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I'm kind of thinking about what Nick had asked there as well about the fact, like, if it's and kind of going on what you said, if I just simply say a checkbox, or a radio button that just says, "Are you vaccinated? Yes, no." Okay, they can answer yes, they can answer no. What it gets into, right? Yeah. So how you, um, yeah. So kind of going on what Nick said and what Mary said just previously to that, I would tell you, do not collect anything else other than the question or the sign off that you just said there, Nick, about, like, I mean, honestly, you could put conditional logic on that thing that says, the submit button doesn't show up until you've checked that you understand that vaccinations are required to attend that event. Um, I think what John was kind of going into is now it's like storing that data. You don't want to collect that data, as well. Um, and I guess these are great questions, but I don't know that I want to put John in the position of being HIPAA expert, although he probably has a lot of insight into HIPAA. I don't know that I want to put him in the position of answering HIPAA questions for campus things.
I I am not a HIPAA expert, but
Okay.
I have dealt with it enough, or worked with it, I guess,
Yeah.
enough to know
Yeah.
a lot about it. Um, I just can I can't, I gotta sign into chat. Okay, I just shared a link with Jenna and Matt so that they can chat out. But the Office of Compliance on campus has a website that they keep up to date with. These are approved tools for storing PHI. So anything in here, if you're collecting data, these are all great for collecting whatever you want to collect. So yes, to David's comment, Qualtrics is right there, 1.3.4. Qualtrics is totally fine to grab whatever data you want because it is protected. We have legal contracts with the Qualtrics software company that if something happens, and we get sued, they cover it. So there's just more due diligence through it, and then there's also the legal contracts that say that at Qualtrics, if you're lying to the university, you're going to pay for it, not the university, which that is not the case for most products we use on campus, and this talks about that. So those are the things you can see there, that we have those extra contracts. We generally, those are BAAs, which are business and shoot, I just lost what BAA stands for.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the buzzwords, but not what they mean. Yeah.
It's like business analysis.
Yeah.
But
yep.
Anyway, basically that's extra insurance from the company stating that they are doing all the things they need to do, and you can put PHI in here. Because the HIPAA fines, if you go on the internet, you can look. Business associates. Thank you, David. You can look. There are multiple $1 million HIPAA fines every year for big healthcare institutions that do not protect PHI correctly. So the university does not want that to happen. So any of these tools that are approved for PHI, we have basically like insurance with the company that says they'll pay us X amount of money if something happens. So, and again, Qualtrics is one of those tools. If you keep going down right there,
Yep.
UW Health is different. It's a sister entity, but there you go. Yep, absolutely. So
I'm humored to see Cisco in there as well, but we do have a contract with them. I know that we have some contracts with them.
we do, and Zoom will be added to that list. Secure Zoom will be added to that list shortly.
Okay.
This hasn't been updated since I want to say February of February of 2021. So it's getting a little bit out of date, but but yeah, those are the items you can, and Qualtrics is a great way to get information. Again, though, in general, another good rule would be to only get the information you absolutely need, and then if you're storing it, put it in a manner that if you didn't know what it was, it wouldn't be useful. Because the breaches that we see on campus where there are issues are, people are storing social security numbers all over the place, for example, and it might not be a social security number, but if someone sees a list full of names with a bunch of 9-digit numbers after their names, I mean, it's very, very likely a social security number. But if it was getting back to Nick's comment earlier, if you just see a name and then a checkbox, that could be any information at all. That could be that person showed up to this thing. That could be this person filled out a form. It could be anything. So it's not as useful if that got stolen. Whereas if it said this person and then a column was vaccinated, or I can't think of any other health conditions right now that are topical. But that person I don't know, is vitamin D deficient or whatever it is, and there's a checkbox, then you're getting kind of dangerous. But I'm for most of the stuff probably that you guys are doing, and you want to use gravity forms, then just like knowing what the data is all that needs to happen.
Right. So that's a good segue into kind of the bigger topic, at least within WiscWeb and within gravity forms, that I personally have dealt with, and I know Jenna has dealt with a few of those conversations as well, is one of the things that groups have brought to me is the fact that they have students that reach out to them, and because students names there are many common names. There's 100 John Smiths on campus, and so if a student reaches out to a academic department and they want to find out more about that student, they'll ask them for their first name, last name, and their campus ID, their student ID number. And kind of what you were just saying, I think, would go in line with that, is if I'm just asking you for your first name and campus ID number, would that be okay?
It's so in general, the more data you collect, the more likely it is to tip into, like, let's say it's internal data. The more data you collect, the more likely it is to become sensitive. So just because it's easier, like if you think about, again, getting back to our data breach issue, if you're just collecting a first name and an ID number, someone who's stealing that would need to know that was an ID number, not a social security number or not a whatever. It could just be any kind of internal number, which is not the whole point of like the student ID number and the employee ID number and all that kind of thing. They're useless outside of the context of UW-Madison, right? Like if you go to your insurance agent and you give him your student ID number, he's not going to run your credit with that and say like, oh, you're approved, you can have some good insurance. Like it is totally useless to them. Whereas a social security number is universally understood and universally can get you into things to impersonate someone else or for yourself. Either way, that's it's like the keys to the kingdom. Whereas these internal numbers are only useful for the systems that use them, and that is the point of them. So just like a first name and an ID number, that's that would be internal data, depending on, again, what else you're collecting. But just those two things, it would be internal data, because if that was stolen, it's just a string of numbers and first names. So, and to your point, Matt earlier, there's 200 John Smiths out there. So which one do you want? Well, you'd have to be into a different system in the university to find that out. And even if you did find it out, it would be hard for you to do anything with that.
Okay.
So again, in general, always try to collect the minimum amount that you need, and err on the side of for our tools that we many of us have access to. If you have a net ID or an email address or a student ID or an EMPL ID, you can find out a lot of information with that because of the tools we have. So that's really all we need to do our jobs. It's nice to have that extra information just because it might save us some time and energy looking things up. But if we can use that, the minimum data we can and use the tools we have at our disposal, that is a better or more secure and lower risk option to handle this kind of thing.
Mary asked the question, can you address collection of race, ethnicity, international status, gender identification, etc.?
Excuse me. I would say that's all, like, I don't know for certain about those. You'd have to ask the registrar. Again, it would depend on, I'm sure, the exact person. Again, if you assume that every student has their FERPA protection flagged, then all that stuff would be restricted data, and we would need to protect it. And so FERPA is the protection of your student data that everyone who's a student has on campus and in K through 12 and everywhere else in the United States. The FERPA hammer is very large because if the university got a big enough fine, the federal government could take away all our federal funding, which would close the university up. I'm sure, I don't know, it would probably struggle on for a little while, or they would do what they could to try to keep it going. But if we lost all our federal funding and all the grants and research money from the federal government, the UW would be no more. So the FERPA risk is great, although on the flip side, they have never done that to any university ever. So it's like a death sentence if it happened, but it has never happened. But anyway, keeping that in mind, we do protect that data as much as we possibly can. And I don't know exactly about those specific things, but again, always ask yourself, why am I collecting that? Do I really need to know this? And the other thing that we haven't really talked about is try to keep the data for as little as possible. There was a couple years ago, a university server got hacked, and the people, luckily, I guess, the people that hacked it, all they did was Bitcoin mining. They mined for a couple weeks straight and got a whole lot of Bitcoin from our servers and our electricity for free. But in figuring that out and researching it, it turns out there were about a little over 7 million social security numbers that just also happened to be on that server that someone intended to delete a while back and never got around to. So that is the thing. Like you want to have a specific plan. Like let's say you need social security numbers. Okay, how long do we need them? As soon as we don't need them, let's put a calendar event to make sure they're gone, because then this breach was bad, and the fact that they stole or used university resources inappropriately to harvest Bitcoin, that's not good. But it would have been way worse if they did that and also knew that the social security numbers were on that and then stole all those social security numbers in addition.
Yeah, that's a you mentioned this when we chatted yesterday, and I kind of just want to reiterate. If there are instances where you are asking for particular data, so I'll again, the one that I deal with the most, and I know a lot of you out there use forums differently, but the one that I have encountered the most is always the campus ID, and like trying to find out more about a student so that you can assist them with academic standing, scholarship, all that stuff. There's a lot of information that you need from a student. One of the things that you could make a part of your business process is to go in every semester or every academic year and just simply purge that information out. You can go in and you can delete entries. And then once they're in the trash, you can purge them from there. Um, there's other conversations too about, like, we talked about the fact that emails get sent out and those emails can go to anyone and etc. Again, take a look at your business processes. Who is getting those notifications? Why are and what information is going into those notifications? You can edit a notification so that only certain things go to a certain person. So, this says all fields, but I don't really need, I don't need all the information to go to, let's say I was sending this to myself. The admin notification would go to me. I might only want to send that person, you know, the feedback that they gave me. So let's, maybe I just want them to see the feedback that they sent. Um, take a look at that kind of information within your own forms and see where that kind of stuff goes. And you know, I I've dealt with this enough to know that people really love hanging on to information. I made the joke. John and I were talking yesterday, and I made the joke that sometimes websites kind of mimic a basement. You kind of just throw something into there. You think you're going to need it eventually, and you forget that it's even in there. It has to be a living thing. You have to be addressing it and cleaning it up from time to time, and it can't just be done and forgotten. So I really do want to encourage people to kind of go. It kind of goes back to my whole who has access to your website, thought as well. You know, go in, clean up, review, make sure all the things are as they are intended to have been. Make sure that all of those um, forms are asking for the appropriate data. What are you doing with that data once you get it? How are you managing it? And then what are you doing with it once you've used it? I think that's kind of the overall thought there as well. I guess, John, if you have any other sort of final thoughts on the topic, and if anybody has any questions, go ahead and throw them into the chat, and we can try to address them as best as we can. But John, any sort of closing thoughts on, I guess,
On this one,
how to best man now in general, just the idea of data collection and how to best manage it. You kind of hit on some of those things about, like, really ask yourself why, but just kind of, what types of things would you kind of want people to leave with? What type of thoughts and sort of cautions?
uh, definitely, as you're collecting it, try to, think about what the minimum that you need to get whatever you need to done. Because that's like the Office of Cybersecurity. The joke is we're the Office of No, or if you can do your job, we're not doing ours. Heard all the jokes, appreciate them. Feel free to send more my way. I get a chuckle out of them, but that is not actually what we want to do. We just want to be intentional about our what we do on campus to minimize our risk. And if I'm sure all of us can think of very public figures who have said and done things that in the moment it was useful, maybe, or it was acceptable, and then years later it has become a risk. So maybe I'm just gonna make something up, but this happens all the time. Maybe in 2010, somebody tweeted something out that was great and hilarious and got a whole bunch of internet karma for it. But in 2021, that same tweet is awful and everybody hates it, and now that person is no longer in the spotlight because of those kind of things. That same kind of thing can happen with any data. So the John Gruden email situation. None of that was acceptable by any means. But if he would have been purging his old emails, then it never would have been up in the first place. So and I guess I could drop a link about that if people don't know. But the short version, Washington football team is getting investigated for a hostile workplace and all sorts of bad things that I'm sure that they're guilty of as process, because the Washington football team is just not a great thing. But anyway, as through that process, the NFL got all of the emails that were on the servers for various people, and John Gruden, who used to be a coach in the NFL, sent a lot of emails to a high-ranking person in the Washington Football Organization, and all those emails were then publicly released, and then they are very, very bad. You don't want to see that kind of stuff. So if they would have had some kind of data management plan, those emails wouldn't have been there to have these things happen to them. And that same kind of, there's like a tipping point for all of us. Linda, I don't know the technical details to say. I haven't seen any kind of technical details, but very likely, yes. Unless the servers are saving them. Most servers have like a 30 or 90-day retention, unless it's a specific instance where all email is saved. But most commercial servers are 30 to 90 days. At least that's a public thing.
Yeah.
But who actually knows? I mean, yes, it would have been way better to not have done any of that stuff in the first place. But the point being, the utility of data drops over time, and at some point it just becomes a liability. So I have hard drives in my basement from computers when I was a student in college, and like I would bet you I have something down there that I would rather not come into the public light, because I mean I was in college. I'm sure there's probably lots of things on there that are wildly inappropriate. Because I have friends and we were all in college together. And thinking about that now, I should take care of that, but I just never have, because it's in the basement and it doesn't matter. But if let's say, I don't know, something bad happened and something that got out, it'd be way worse for me than any kind of utility for keeping that hard drive around. And that's just an example, but all of the data has this. Like there becomes a point when it's no longer useful, and it's just risky, and it gets riskier and riskier as you keep going forward.
Okay, so we'll kind of end that the cybersecurity conference. Break out the drill. Yes, get the really strong magnets going for that one. But yeah, I want to thank John for kind of stepping into here. We've been wanting to have this conversation for a while now, and you can see that it is there are many answers. The right answer is sometimes hard to find because there are a lot of complications in that. So what my recommendation would be is I put the link in for the cybersecurity office. If you have any questions regarding this type of data collection, or how to collect this data, should you collect this data, certainly reach out to the team. They will respond. While they do have the, John was saying the jokes, the Office of No, etc. They are responsive, and if you need an answer, it might not be the answer you want, but at least you can get an answer. And it's better to protect yourself, protect who you're collecting the data for, protect your department, protect the university. It's better to have the right answer, even if it's not the answer that you want. I'll kind of just leave it at that. And thanks, John, for attending.
Of course. And just to be totally clear, we don't tell anyone no. At least maybe people above me do, but myself and my coworkers, my peers, we don't tell anyone no. We just want to inform people so they know the risks they're taking. As an example, diving, right? Diving into a body of water. Is that safe? Well, there's a lot of variables there, right? Like, is it shallow? Then, it's not a great idea unless you're an expert diver. If it's deep body of water, it's probably safe, but can you swim? There's just, there's a lot of ways to address any kind of risk. And, but ultimately the decision comes down to the person doing the thing. So, in this example, I can be the lifeguard to say that that's shallow water and I wouldn't dive in there, but I'm not going to tackle you and stop you from diving in there because it's your body and your life. And maybe you're the best diver in the history of diving, and this is no big deal for you. So ultimately you guys need to make that decision. We're just here to try to help you think about all of the risks and ways to minimize them. But ultimately, all this stuff is, again, it's you and your groups or your leadership that makes these decisions and decides, you know, this is acceptable and we can do it and it's going to be fine, or no, it's not acceptable and we didn't think about the fact that, you know, it is a deep dive, but there's piranhas in there and we don't want to swim with piranhas. Thank you for
No.
pointing out that there's piranhas. And then we, you know, everybody's safe. So yeah,
Okay.
that's what we do, or try to. And feel free to reach out to me directly too. We are all, I'm sure everyone is on this call and across the university is understaffed and over resourced, but I'll, you know, we all do our best to try to turn around quickly and help people out in any way we can. So
All right. All right. Thank you, John. Okay. So 13 minutes left. I'm going to just kind of run through a few of the reminders that we also have for this month heading into next month and the end of the semester, etc. So first things first, I updated a few plugins this morning, some of which you guys won't see, but we updated Akismet. So for those of you who do have commenting turned on your sites, we updated Akismet for that purpose. Again, if you are collecting comments on your site, well, why? But also make sure you're using Akismet to protect yourself from spam stuff there. I updated Enable Media Replace, which is it's a plugin that we have within. Let me bounce back over to here real quick so I can show you what it actually does. So what Enable Media Replace does is it allows you to choose an image, and then you can replace that media. And then as part of replacing that media, you have options to replace the file or replace the file and update links to the file as well. So we updated that one this morning as well. Probably next week, I'm going to take WP data tables, gravity forms, and events calendar are big three. I'm going to start looking at those and testing those updates out, and we'll hopefully have those pushed out in a couple of weeks as well. We have those in our upcoming sprint to get those pushed out. So plugin updates are happening. Speaking of this month and next month, we wanted to just make you guys aware of the fact that obviously we're in November, Thanksgiving's coming up, December is next month, and winter holidays are coming up. Just be aware of the fact that during that time, staffing will be low, and support times will probably go up if you're emailing in. So if it is something that is very time sensitive, needs to get done, we'll be monitoring it. But if it is not something that is critical to site or to business process, we'll get to it when we get back into the office. Um, but if something happens, please do reach out so that we can at least see the ticket come through, and then if it is something that is critical, we can address it as fast as possible. So just be aware of that. And then the last two things to be aware of, or I shouldn't say last two things, last things to be aware of, your general reminders for our feature request board. So KBDoc 110624. I will throw that into the chat as well. Let me find you there. We are continuously monitoring this and taking feature requests and trying to take a look at what things are doable in the short term, what things are doable in the long term, and what things can we make note of that aren't doable yet, but we know that they are desired. So even if you're not creating a feature request, please go here to take a look at the features and see if there are any there that speak to you. Give them a thumbs up. You click into them, and if it's something that you want to see come to the UW theme and to WiscWeb, give it a thumbs up down there. That way, we know that people want it. People are desiring these types of updates. just a note to some of that stuff. We know, like, option to protect pages to net IDs. That is a great desire. It has been a great desire for many moons. It's complicated. So just because it's high on the list, but we're not getting to it, don't think that we're ignoring it. We are definitely taking these things into consideration, but some things are doable, some things are difficult. And so we have to really take a deep look at how to best do it within our structure. So, again, just a plug for the feature request board, the community of practice, I need to move my notes around here. Again, third monitor for those of you who joined at the very beginning. I'm going to bump that over there so I can pull this monitor over to here. Pull that there. Okay. So the community of practice, the WordPress community of practice, I'll throw that into the chat as well. Again, just a group of users. A lot of them are WiscWeb users, but there are many other users in there who have different perspectives. Great place to chat about things that you want to do, things that you want to try to do. Join the team and join the team's channel. Join the team. Join the team's channel and just have a chat with us. Jenna and I hang out in there as well, so we try to respond as best we can from time to time. And then last two things to touch on are the other community of practice groups that are up and running now. There is the UW Design community that, for those of you who are familiar with, Adam Hilsmeyer and Laura Grady are the two people heading that up. They're trying to do sessions, good design sessions. So to give ourselves a little plug, Jenna and I are going to be a part of the next design community presentation, which is December 1st at 11:30. I'll send out a little reminder before that happens so that you guys have all the information. But we're going to be talking about homepage design, what goes on a homepage, what should go on a homepage, things of that nature. So we're going to be talking about that. And then the last one is the digital accessibility community of practice. This for what I mean, for the obvious reason, and I shared an article in the community of practice team group about digital accessibility and the way that the campus had to respond to digital accessibility when we went into pandemic mode. There's a lot of information there about how to address and manage accessibility, why accessibility is important. There's lots of information out there for you guys to take a look at, and I really, really do hope that you join that one because it is a significant aspect of our offerings to campus, is to make sure that those digital items, documents, web pages, videos, audio, anything of that nature, it's accessible to all users. So that one I'm passionate about, so that's why I'm kind of hitting on that quite a bit, because I want to make sure that really your sites are accessible, your items are accessible there. So that's it. That's the list. I'm not sure if we'll have a December lunch and learn, just because we're getting into December. Vacations are going to be happening. I don't think we're doing anything significant over the next couple of months. Jenna, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have a theme update coming anytime soon, or at least in this calendar year.
Actually, we're hoping. Hi, everyone. This is Jenna. We're hoping to roll out some changes to what's called the page builder in the UW theme that might get us ready for new opportunities for some things that have been requested within the theme. So that will probably be a single release. It'll be the only thing in that UW theme release since it's going to be a major change, but you might see that before the end of this calendar year.
Okay, good. I thought that was our I thought we were going to be testing that and then we would roll it out after the new year, but that's good to hear.
Yeah, goal is to get it out before the end of the year, but things come up and holidays definitely get in the way.
Yeah.
So,
so we
yeah.
may, so if not a lunch and learn, I may do a learn with Matt to kind of walk through some of that stuff. Again, depending upon lunch and learn date versus release date, we'll see. We'll see how that lines up. But I might have to do something one off just to kind of hit on all those things that are coming with that particular change, which is pretty exciting, and we're excited for it because it will address some of the concerns on that feature request board. So we are excited for that. Okay, that's it. As always, you guys know how to reach out to me. You get my emails, all that jazz. Reach out to the team at help@doit.wisc.edu if you have any questions or any support needs from that standpoint. Otherwise, have a good November, good holidays, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks for attending. Later, everybody.